how's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
Good.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Does that sound good? All right. Other than my voice? All right.
Testing, testing.
sounds good. Is this one on? Is this one on?
I think it is. If you talk into it, can you hear?
Testing, yep.
Yep, you got it.
There. I'll give a minute yet. If you haven't signed in yet, sign up sheet up front here and also grab one of the handouts. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We might be a minute early here, but we can get started. All right, we'll call the meeting to order and ask Pastor to open them with a prayer.
For our opening devotion, I thought we could use 1 Corinthians 7. It was the second lesson from worship this last Sunday, and I think it's interesting. I'll read you starting off in verse 29. It says, "What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they do not, those who mourn as if they did not, those who are happy as if they were not, those who buy something as if it were not theirs to keep, those who use the things of this world as if not engrossed in them. For this world in its present form is passing away." It's kind of a strange passage, huh? I mean, God's not saying you should go out and leave your wife and ignore all of your other earthly duties. But he is making a point there, isn't he? That the time is short. We don't know how long we have on this earth. We don't know how long St. Matthew has an opportunity to carry out its ministry. We don't know how long it is until Jesus comes back on the last day. And so it's an urgent thing that we have. And I think sometimes what happens when you're in the middle of something, kind of like we've been going through with COVID, is you're kind of just waiting for it to be over, you know? But I tell you what, in the last few months, we've had so many opportunities. Especially from an outreach side, we're really getting the opportunity to reach some people. We've had, if you've noticed in church, we've had several folks join us from Pillars the last few weeks. 4 or 5 people, coming per weekend now from Pillars. And we've had people coming into our offices, myself and Pastor Kuski. We've really had an opportunity to share the gospel with them. Not just material support, but the opportunity to share Jesus with them. And the Lord's just opening all kinds of doors in front of us right now. And I think that's huge for us as a congregation to have the opportunity to reach out to those folks and to show them they have a place here, and where this can be a place where they have a chance to grow up in their faith and get to know the good news of our Savior. And so there's a lot to be excited about. I think there is a part of us, I know I'm that way. I can't wait till all this is done. We can kind of start getting back to normal, right? But I tell you what, in the meantime here, the Lord has really blessed us with some amazing and awesome opportunities to carry out the ministries God's given us. So today we'll have an opportunity to talk about some of those and just thank God for the blessings He's given us over the past year. So why don't we close with prayer, or begin with prayer. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings you've given us throughout the year. We thank you for all the ways you've given us the opportunity in the midst of a very difficult time to share with others the good news of Jesus. Please help us throughout our meeting to celebrate your blessings, to address the challenges, and to look forward to another year of serving under your grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Pastor. Hopefully everybody got a copy of the handout. The agenda is on page 3, and that's what we'll follow tonight. So again, I appreciate everybody coming. This is really intended to be a meeting where we look back on 2020. It's not the last quarter, it's not the first quarter, it's the whole year. Just kind of a look back on the year and what all took place, I guess, within our ministries and how we've been blessed through the year. So we'll go through the agenda as it's there and let the presenters tell you about the different areas. So with that, either Pastor Kuski or Pastor Olson, who's going to go first? Pastor Kuski.
Again, good evening. Thanks for coming out on a brisk January night and being part of our Thanksgiving here, as well as our opportunity to, as Rick mentioned and Pastor Olson mentioned, see and maybe even to seize more of those opportunities that are before us. So our report, Pastor Olson and myself, starts on page 5. I'll call attention to just a few items there for you to take a look at, and of course the whole report you can read on your own. Under InReach number 1, we rejoice in this last year's baptisms, confirmations, affirmations of faith, and in 9 of our members joining their Lord in heaven. And added to that was Rose Tim last week, and just today, Lavon Henke was taken home to be with her Lord. Really, our goals in life to have the full life that God gives to us in the fellowship that we have with Him, the worship, the Word, and then to have that glorious life that we're longing for and that our loved ones are now enjoying. And really, the next points under that is really just some of the details of how we continue to enjoy that full life and then strive to have the glory that God has waiting for us. I call attention to number 5 and number 6 together. Right now there are 6 word events and even up to 10 when you include the life groups and the grief share. Grief share won't be offered again until after Easter. And then about half of those that are being offered on Facebook or on Zoom. And so, as Pastor Olson has been saying on Sunday and tonight, and also as that bullet under number 6 says, you could say that the Word is arguably more available than ever before at St. Matthew, for those who are able to be here in person and for those out there who can join us online. So we've been greatly blessed in being able to offer all the things that we are. What came to mind is, the children of Israel losing their temple worship and the focus and the wonderful ways that the Lord was drawing them closer to Him through all the symbolism that was there, but then being spread out, but then having the synagogue worship where that came to be the way that people gathered. And you didn't necessarily have to depend on somebody far away to bring you the Word, but there were the teachers right there in your town every single Saturday, or even if you went there to gather in between times. And the Lord had a way of making things very available, that full life and that glorious life to come, just like He is today. So it's good for us to recognize that, and then also to be able to remind others of that, and hopefully to draw some of them in for that. Looking down the page to forward-looking vision. This maybe doesn't sound too forward, just kind of a reminder that we're doing all the things to be safe here. I think that needs to continue to be said, though, because there's so many people who haven't been joining us and have been coming back and saying, I don't think I'm putting myself at risk here. A number of people have said that. There was a family member at the funeral last week who said that they have been very much a part of the in-person worship and activities at the church, and when COVID hit, they just withdrew, and there were some good reasons for them to do that. But just hadn't gotten back into even thinking about being back in church. And they came here and they saw how we did things. They said, if they were doing this at our church, and sure they probably are, I probably should think about going back. And they realized that something was missing there. And I think that's going to be true of more of our people as the vaccine becomes available, or they find out that things are about as safe as they can be anywhere here in church. And if there's one place that you want to be, it's in God's house with God's people. I call attention to that because if you turn the page, under open opportunities, number 15, I thank you for your involvement, and then continue to remind people that in coming back in whatever way they might, this is something really for them and for the rest of the folks here at church. Maybe just relate one other example that kind of struck home to me is that we had one of our shut-ins who said, don't even come because they're afraid of picking something up from the pastors or other visitors that come to their house. And got talking to him a little bit more. Actually, one of the other pastors did, and he said, why not just come for private communion? We can walk you in. You can meet 6 feet away from the pastor, even with somebody who's had it already, and keep things about as safe as they can be. And then you can also enjoy that fellowship with the Lord and to have a short devotion. And they started thinking about how good that would be, and they said, I think I got to get back. So, not in maybe the way that they used to, but in a way that would be able for them and in a way that is going to have them in word and sacrament. So let's be alert for that and alert for the opportunities, just to remind people that, not to come back if they're not ready, if their conscience is telling them, I really shouldn't be back there for my sake or other people's sake, but it's good to gather with the Lord. Maybe one other point with that too, if you're strong and if you're in a routine and you're in the Word and you're watching it, you're probably as good as ever. But the people who aren't as strong, the people who need to be here, maybe especially our young people, or especially our kids, they're not getting nearly as much on the online Zoom sessions as they would in person. And some of them are planning on coming back, and we're going to be getting in-person Sunday school, probably going again in March. But some of the weaker members, too, who, it's harder to pay attention online, or maybe to keep that routine, to be there every single week. Whereas church gathering here might be something that keeps them more faithful. And you're actually doing it by continuing to come here. So let's try to make those opportunities available, especially for those who truly need it and who truly can't come here. The last thing I'll say is under the Hope Center outreach. Again, Pastor Olson mentioned it in his sermon on Sunday that, sometimes we find ourselves not where we maybe are told that we should be, like in the front lines of in-reach, like I was just talking about, or even outreach. But some of the ladies, I gathered with 6 of them today and just did a little bit of in-person training, how they could better connect with our clients who come there. And most of them are doing it already. They're already engaging the people who come in, and really, with a compassionate spirit, are asking them, how are things going, and finding out that things often aren't going very well for the families who are really in a great need. Over 100 people, which is probably 200 to 300 family members who have been so greatly affected, much more seriously than you and me, and are benefiting not only from the supplies that are given there, but from the compassion, the encouragement. And that's what some of those ladies do. But what we're trying to do is capture some of what is shared with us really publicly, and to get that passed on to some of those who can follow up, like some of us pastors. And it's interesting just getting them together and talking about, I need to write all these things down that I'm finding out in these 6 visits right after another. And if I did, pastor could probably have something that he would talk to those people about, maybe they to him about. And realizing that, they don't have to have a knock on the door kind of thing, or even, talking to people who walk into church. People were coming in and talking to them anyway, and then opening some of these doors for the gospel to go through them. So, keep that in mind, and maybe experiment for yourself. There's many volunteers that come in and say, this isn't for me, and that's fine. But keep looking for some of those opportunities that the Lord is not only using you to do what you do well, but also to be compassionately listening and then looking for ways of having Him really take care of so many of those evils that people just are struggling with so much these days. All right, Pastor Olson.
Hey, just want to call your attention to just a couple things with the outreach that we've had a chance to do. One thing we've mentioned, we really are having a lot of great opportunities to reach out with the gospel right now at St. Matthew, and that's maybe something I hope in the next year we can do a better job of, is letting you know that, letting you see that. I don't know if our members at St. Matthew, the ones on Saturday and Sunday, get to see what happens on Monday through Friday as much as we do, and to help you see, we really are reaching a lot of folks. It really is a cool thing, and I think that's increasing as time has went on, and people whose hearts are aching for the gospel. And so, I hope we can do a better job in the next year of letting you kind of give you a window into that. and see what's going on, because it really is kind of fun to watch how some of these relationships are blossoming. Second thing to take note of is we are seeing them in church more often, and I know one person, we had one person from Pillars that ended up going around and wiping down the pews, and I was happy to see that, that person was plugged in that way, and just to go out of your way and say hi. I mean, a lot of times these are people who are kind of on the outskirts of everything, their family, society. Boy, if they can come here and feel as though they're welcome, what a difference that makes. So it's also increasingly hard to be able to follow up because we don't have the connection cards, and we haven't found a good way to get folks info. For example, on Sunday in Bible class, we had 2 young folks who came in and sat in on Bible class after it started, then they left before it was over, so I never got a chance to find out, who they are and to follow up with them. Boy, if you see someone like that, if just a matter of saying, hey, it's great to see you, and maybe finding a way, just get their name, anything like that can help. And then we can ask around and figure out kind of who they are and see if we can follow up. That can make a big difference. And you can even grab a connection card and maybe jot down a number, if one of the pastors aren't able to get there. So that continues to be a little bit of a struggle with COVID, but a lot of opportunities. A couple things in the forward-looking vision. Just to give you an idea, some of the things that are down the pike. We are working on a Back to Church initiative. Met with John Pellenin and Dave Hankey about that. And hoping to have kind of a 3-phase approach to really inviting people to be back in church. Maybe trying in the spring to see if we can really try to get people to come back to church as they're comfortable. Have some events maybe in the summer where we can do that, and then really kind of push in the fall as well. So see if we can really reach folks. I think, if you always try to think about where the opportunity is in tough times. I think there's a big opportunity for maybe reaching some people who maybe haven't been in church regularly for a long time. This is kind of a reset, you know what I mean? So if you're out of the habit of being in worship, everybody's out of the habit right now. So maybe we can reach some of those folks who haven't been in church for a long time regularly. So there could be, if you know of someone who you'd like to see in church and maybe before COVID you just couldn't get them in the building, maybe try again. Maybe we'll see some of those folks back. I've had some contacts with some of those people already here, and I know Pastor Kuski has as well. So another thing, just the recognizing and reclaiming our purpose and identity, that's just something we'll be studying once we're able to have a big group together with COVID. That's just a part of us recognizing the unique ministry that's kind of blossoming here at St. Matthew, and maybe just kind of intentionalizing understanding it, and then figuring out how we can take our resources and use it to those ends. So that's kind of the purpose of that. We hope to do that sometime after Easter, but it just depends on when we can start getting bigger groups together. And finally, Ben's going to give you a report on Lighthouse Youth Ministries. That's something we had mentioned before. We were approached with the opportunity to possibly host an after-school program called Lighthouse. It's a Wells-run after-school program for kids in the area. And so right now we have a committee together that's actively exploring that. Really a cool, exciting opportunity, and Ben's going to give us some more info on that. So that's all I got.
Any questions for the pastors? All right. Then next up is worship. Troy, you're going to... Al's here too, so I know. Is that a question for Al?
Okay. Evening, everybody. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm Troy Wendt, taking over for Al Roble, worship elder. So we thank Al for doing his work all these past years. So I'm the new guy. I'm going to check. Oh, is this better? Okay. I'm the new guy, so I'm going to try to do my best. So if you got any comments, just yell them out. Okay, so last year, just the first order here, Advent by Candlelight, they had to, obviously with COVID and all this other stuff, they had to, they were restricted to what they could do. About 35 women met in the church. That was all that was able to meet in person, but the next line there, 680 views on Facebook and YouTube. So I think that's really good. Hopefully the next year we can meet just like every other year. AV booth, audio booth, we added another screen, as you can see, so that actually, obviously adds to our worship service, and So we're thankful for that, and volunteers are still needed for that every week, so if you're interested, contact Janet Meyer on that one. Ushers, kind of a new thing, I think. They're starting to do the Sign Up Genius for special services, particularly. It's an email that goes out. It's really user-friendly. It's really easy to sign up. So it's just a better way of, especially with not as many people being here, to reach people so they can sign up for that. But obviously volunteers are still needed. So if anybody's interested, if you hear of anybody being interested, just contact Keith Stoop for that. The next one, worship services. Just a couple of things to highlight here. I put for Christmas this last year is 177 in person. Last year was 368. Obviously, COVID knocked it way down for that. One good thing, the Facebook and YouTube was 502. So I was actually, in total, we reached 100 more people than we did last year during the Christmas year. So that's something to be thankful for. And I just want to thank, all the musicians, ushers, greeters. It takes a lot of people to put a service together. So, just, if you know anybody that wants to volunteer, do it, great. But I just want to say a special thank you to all those that make it possible. Looking forward to 2021. Obviously with COVID-19, we're meeting, every month and talking about when we can get back to normal. What that looks like now, I don't know. I'm hoping to, as soon as possible, but there's obviously some things that we got to work through yet. And then along with that, the Mission Festival has been postponed till the fall, so that's kind of self-explanatory. The next one, new hymnals, we should be receiving by Advent 2021. So the worship committee will meet and we'll figure out how we can use them and when we'll be implementing them into the service. The next thing on the sheet here is organ replacement. 34 years old, as you can see. I've heard from a number of people that it's getting very bad. And I know Cheryl has talked to me too about it. And I just put some numbers together here so you can kind of see what we're looking at, how much it costs, how much we have saved for it already. So just something that hopefully we can get done here. Well, we will be getting done here in the next year, so or shorter. So just something to keep in mind there. The next page, I listed all the coordinators. So I just want to say thank you to all those people, and it takes a lot of people to put a service together, and we just thank them for everything they do. And if again, if you are willing to help or know somebody that's wanting to help, you can contact me or contact anybody on this list, and we can point you in the right direction. So that's all I got.
Any questions for Troy? All right, discipleship, John?
Rick, you want me to talk gateways to growth, same thing?
It's up to you. I've got it number 12 on the agenda later on, but if you want to just cover it all right now,
Okay.
more than welcome to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. I get to take this off. I'll start out with gateways to growth. So if we can go to, I think that's page 20. We can look at the chart. It was about 14 months ago when we started Gateways to Growth. And at that time, we had 5 funds that we were looking at, and then one undesignated fund. And we as a congregation really need to give ourselves a pat on the back, because we have 4 of these funds as of the end of December done. Earlier in the year, we completed the roof fund, the technology fund, the worship fund, and then end of December, the handicap ramp fund. And incidentally, once that worship fund was completed and the technology fund, we had some real good people who took off and took the ball and ran on that. And, you know, it was really fortunate that the timing of that was the way it was, because with COVID, if we didn't have a technology and then worship upgrade, we would have had a real kind of a weak communication link on Facebook and out on YouTube. So hands off to those folks who did all the hard work on that. Great job. And handicap ramp fund, we just completed that end of December, and we're going to be looking at hopefully sometime this spring breaking ground on that also. And as I said, we had 5 funds in Gateways to Growth. We have 1 big fund to go, and as Troy mentioned in worship, is the organ fund. We've got about 30% of the money for that now, about $22,000 total. The need is for $67,000 is the goal. So I think if we had a goal for the congregation this year, as Troy said, it'd be nice to get that done this year, and before the year's out, to see that on order. Anyone have any questions on Gateways to Grow? Pat?
Just on the act of the foundation, I just want to reiterate, the foundation does have $10,000 earmarked to contribute to the organ fund. So you can consider, I don't know if that's included in these dollars or not. I don't know how you put that one together. That's a gift that you have not received yet.
Okay.
We have earmarked the dollars.
Okay, and it's not received yet.
Right.
Okay.
Those are $21. Those were just designated. They weren't, there's no timing tied to them. They'll be paid once you're within a stone's reach. We'll close the gap here. We like to leave the money invested as long as possible, because the foundation's done well. If you
Yeah.
can get to, your total is 65, you can get to 55, we'll close it.
Okay. Very good. Lynn?
What are the matching funds? Is there something out there that on a certain Sunday, you know, private's matching us, or we have something set aside to match?
Yeah, we had a matching fund last year
Yeah,
for the whole
is there
fund.
something like that in for this year?
Yeah, no word on that yet. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to touch on a couple of things in my discipleship report, and let's see where I am here with them. Yeah, we can go to pages 9, 10, and 11. And we started life groups again in September with 25 members. We had 3 groups, 2 groups meeting on a Thursday evening and then 1 on a Wednesday. And again, it was Ben Ring, Parsons, Al Robel, and Pastor Kuski were facilitators. And again, we did it in the church rather than being at someone's home here because of the COVID issues. And worked out real well and finished up in November. In any other year, it would be normal, but it was nice to see in September we started women's Bible study again, teen Bible study, and then underground. All normal things, but with this COVID, it was nice to see that happening. Forward-looking vision. We just started our life groups again in January, women's Bible study up and running again in January, teen Bible study and underground. Life groups forward-looking, we'd like to see if we can get more members on board. We've got 2 groups that are meeting in the church in room 108 on Thursdays, and Pastor Kuski's got 1 group by Zoom meeting. So if people are interested I think this is a 5-week segment we have here. We'll be finishing up here in about 3 weeks, and then starting up again sometime after Easter. So if people have an interest, you can either come live here at the church or meetings. And as Pastor Olson was talking about, Dave Hankey, Pastor Kuski, Pastor Olson, I have talked a little bit about a plan for bringing people back to the church community. You know, we've got some ideas, mailings that at some point we're going to be sending out, emails, contacting folks by phone if needed. And then we had talked about maybe putting a video together, encouraging people to return, doing our best to keep us a safe environment here. And also outside. And I just wanted to say, as I mentioned before too, is that congratulations. A lot of hard work by many people, staff, facilitators for life group, women's Bible study, teen Bible study. In a year like this, it's just, and everyone's just done an outstanding job getting us moving forward. Anyone have any questions for me? That's all I've got.
Hey, John, next is outreach day.
Good evening, everyone. You know, I could just highlight a few things. You can read this at your leisure in the next couple of weeks. It's been said many times already with COVID, outreach got hit pretty hard. Well, the whole church did, as far as being able to do our normal outreach activities. We have listed here, we got the Winter Festival in last January, before COVID actually hit, so that was our only normal non-COVID in 2020. Other than that, we had a very small scavenger hunt. We had a very small kids Christmas drive-through versus our normal Christmas for kids. Very limited. Our grief share was limited. You can read that. The final session was canceled during the winter, and they did still have a fall session, but it was different. Women's ministry, we have our 4 seminars, and the amounts, they were all in the parish site, in the bulletin a couple of times. This is replicated. Get to the it basically wouldn't have a lot of events as hard as we could. If 2021 get back up, we can have some of those events. 2021. It's going to another scaled back Winterfest this Saturday. We're going to have the horses in the wagon, but there's not going to be games for the children. Just people full of chili crackers and hot cocoa packet, things like that, and send them on. Just keep in contact. Full-blown. Vision possible. We still did a few things, and thank you for all your help. Here we're going to try and have as many outreach events as we have, and how that all pans out. Any questions, comments?
Good evening, everyone. Arden told me to keep. I can tell you one thing that COVID didn't this year was our property. Lights still burnt out, still leaked, batteries backing up. So the news is most of things, one of the bigger things was our signal to cell phones indicating that there's a potential leak flood in the building. So if that works out as well as I anticipate, we will add another Wi-Fi sensor to the water main itself. So that'll help. If some of you remember, we had some water issues over the last year or two. Some were fairly significant. So hopefully this will help to kind of keep us ahead of all that. Couple of big things to highlight. Looking at getting some quotation for both the bell tower and the brick face of the building. It's an old building. That clock tower, I believe, was put up, and somebody's going to correct me here, in the late 50s? 55, I think, was the number? 50, yeah. So, and it's been supporting about 4,000 pounds of bells all through those years, through all of our Wisconsin summers and winters. So, at some point, we'll have to look at repair of that later. So, same with the brick face. If you get a chance in the summer or the spring to look, you can see we're probably going to need to do some repairs. Hopefully, not extensive repairs. Other than that, building's in pretty good shape, and God willing, and the river doesn't rise, we should be all right for 2021. Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks for that.
All right. One thing that the COVID definitely affected the financials, although in a very strange way. And normally I get up here and explain 2 or 3 different items that deviated from the budget, but I think I'd have a hard time finding 2 or 3 that conformed to the budget this year. So I'm gonna explain. It's CDC blessing, right? We had a surplus of over $28,000 for the year. That's a good thing, okay? My explanation is probably going to leave everybody confused. I'm going to at least start off with that's a good thing, okay? I went through and put a lot of allocations from the budget, and if we could show that, the next slide has the, sorry, first slide. If Pastor, this slide for me. And let me just cover that. It's hard to read what it's showing. The PPP loan does not show up as income. The government regulations required us to show it as payroll, so what it shows up is as a reduction in the payroll expenses. So we've got really low, yes?
If we had a surplus of 28,743, that includes the 44,500 from the PPP. We were actually forgiving, running the.
And let me look at the whole, the whole picture. Okay, all right. There's. Let's look at the next. All right, the next slide. Okay. Now this shows all of the income. We did not. To say that we were short of budget is is really, all right. The key, that foundation, ministry, and evangelism, $16,711 that we had put in the budget, the voters decided, at our recommendation, to put that off until next year, okay? So if we were to include that, we would have a very high surplus if we would have kept that in this year. But we didn't see a point in doing that to make our accounting look real good and make a really good surplus for this year. So we put the money into next year. Okay, does that make sense, Ken? Economically, it's not a deficit. All right, we're not short money this year. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be very straightforward. Okay. So you can see that there's a lot of positive and negative, and nothing. The offerings, our congregational offerings, what we live on, was $3,000 over budget. Okay, and that's, of course, after it doesn't include all the money that you gave for gateways. Okay, so it's yeah. Other than that, a little here, a little there. The memorials is a counting error that I made. Should have gone into church contributions, but all right. So it looks like we had less. To Ken's point, it does look like we had less income than we budgeted, but the main factor there is that if you add up the PPP loan, that puts us over, and if we would have put in the foundation, ministry, and evangelism, that would have put us back up there. So that's what the income side looks like. Okay. Now, if we go to the next slide, it shows the expense deviations. Okay, and that's that weird payroll number. In addition to the fact that the PPP loan shows up as a reduction in expense rather than as an income, we also had less hourly work last year because of the COVID, and we also had the health insurance was actually less because of an election that one of our pastors took. Youth discipleship was over because of tuition. Okay, the ministry areas were all under budget except for properties. Okay, the properties was 20,000 over budget. So in the end, it's hard to for me to get a handle on all this. Okay, because there's so many things that are different from what we said, but so you got a difference in the 38,000 is from the financial sheets. That's the difference in expenses from the budget, and I explained more than $38,000, but there's other things that I didn't cover every penny. Okay, so properties is 20,000 over. I mentioned part of that was a miscalculation of utilities, but the biggest things are the boiler expenses and the duplex, right? Did I get that right, Pat? Where's Pat? Okay. So let's go to the next slide is, what did I have? Okay, we had a lot of blessings, and I am real positive about, last year. I know there's a lot of jumbled numbers. It's not the usual sensible amount, but we did well. I do think that as a financial guy, I should highlight some areas of concern. The building maintenance, the maintenance budget has been we've been over budget for the last 2 years. Okay, and so that's something that concerns me. School tuition continues to rise. Well, that's not so much a concern as it is a blessing, right? We have more children going to church. That's a good thing, and the bad news is that tuition is going up. So we were blessed last year. The congregation did well. I want to thank everybody for contributing. We're enough to keep the lights on and really make our ministry through. Okay? The next one is questions. So, Pastor? Yep, Pat? It's money that hasn't been taken out yet. It's often figured out to ways. Let me get back with you on that. Okay. Yeah, let me, yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we qualify for the loan, but it's the reason that we're not qualified is a good thing. Okay. I think the worst quarter was Q2, 10% low. No, Q1, 10% low. And it got made up real quick. Okay. So thanks everyone for your attention.
Thank you. Typically, Al Crowell will be giving reports on behalf of the foundation. Kind of chosen to stay very low with the in public, so he's in regular contact with the board and the foundation and has generated the report, which is on page 19 of your handout. Al, I hope you're joining us tonight online. The board continues to bless St. Matthew's has been pointed out, and certainly the results of the foundation account is no exception. The foundation made a gain in the fourth quarter of the year of over $80,000. Just incredible. So the balance as of 12/31 was just a shade under $1 million. We have never hit $1 million. We've never been near this high, at least in my experience on the foundation. So again, $990,194.11 at the end of the year, which is an 18.53% return for 2020, considering a massive dip in the stock market. And I believe it was March when things went way up. As a comparison, the S&P, which is a good comparable investment, was at 10.88. I'm sorry, it was at our rate of return was 18%. The S&P is 18.01% or somewhere in that neighborhood. So we beat the S&P. Congratulations to the gentlemen and ladies who run a balanced fund that's a great investment product. 5 years they've averaged just under 11%, which is nice. Back to the comment I made, a gain of $80,000. We also dispersed $10,000 thereabouts in the fourth quarter of the year too. So if there wouldn't have been that disbursement, we would have had a balance over $1 million at the end of the year. And I believe the original investment, it's on Al's report, was in the vicinity of about $600,000, I believe, that started the foundation. So a little bit of that as a preference to the report. Also, last year the foundation did give 2 special gifts to FVL and to Synod that resulted from money from 2019 that was never used. So we voted as a board, and the money was split. So each entity got just over $2,100 from the foundation on behalf of Matthew, in addition to all the other FVL money from our regular offerings and your special envelopes. Also then, it was mentioned in the budget before when Jim was up here, the foundation has worked with council and has approved and paved way the path to carry forward money that was allocated but not used last year. Circumstances last year was exceptional beyond none. So in this year's coming budget, we've made available to the council $18,850 that could be requested and used towards operational and payroll expenses. That's coming again from ministry and evangelism dollars that were earmarked for 2020 and not used. And again, we as a board have voted to approve that, to make it available for this year only, going forward. So we've arranged a document that we've agreed with the council, and it's available per request. The rest of the report, as Al has it here, shows the total year with all the disbursements that were made and noted with the footnotes on the bottom. There are 5 different notes. Again, just a wonderful year. We've been busy. We've had Zoom meetings that have been a little less than successful technologically, but we've gotten the job done. And looking forward to maybe resuming in-person meetings somewhere, again, earlier this coming year. And again, I'll reiterate, the foundation does have $10,000 earmarked in our funds to donate to the organ fund. It will be done in the name of Gerald Roloff, the previous music director and long-term organist at St. Matthew. I remember the gentleman when I first joined, but I'm aware of his history and importance to our history. So that gift will come in his honor. And then we have a little money left to pay towards the matching funds from last year from a cash standpoint, but those dollars have been earmarked and used. So going forward for 2021, there are no additional foundation dollars earmarked for matching dollars for new contributions in 2021. That's something we could certainly take on as time goes on, but as of now, everything that's been voted on and approved has been earmarked and/or expensed. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to field them. Otherwise, I thank you for your time.
At one time, you mentioned that, the foundation's grown from 600,000 to $1 million, but that doesn't count, of course, all the disbursements that have been made. At one time, you, Al, or you gave a report that had, like, the disbursements that have been done over all the.
I think I'm close in that six, but you're right. I believe we started with 600 or 700, somewhere in that range. And again, we can verify that. We've got all that tracked. So we've given away hundreds. For 2021, we've already earmarked 40-some thousand dollars. Now, some of that goes to FEL and Synod, but then there's the 18 on top of that. So yeah, there's been hundreds of thousands of given, and look how it's increased. And the last plug there probably would be, keep that in mind with your own personal giving, memorials or estate planning. That the Matthew Foundation as an entity is out there, and I think the dollars are getting bigger, Jim. We're seeing what used to be kind of a trickle of money get a little more serious. And of course, the stock market has had a lot to do with it. And we don't know what the future holds there. We could see a turn back for certain. But wow, last year, considering everything that went on, was a real blessing. So we thank the Lord for that. You have a good evening. Thank you.
You can find just a few bullets on the Pillars Resource Center at the end of the pastor's report. That's on page 6, towards the bottom. Maybe kind of old news, but she hasn't been at it that long. Betsy Borns, who was the projector who helped introduce the idea of Pillars, and is also a member over at Emmanuel Lutheran, one of our sister churches. She has been the program director, kind of learning the ropes over there, but has been very good at communicating what's going on, helping us know what's happening, as well as for the Resource Center to do all the things that it can to, honor being a tenant of St. Matthew. And then also just a real mind for ministry. She herself likes to be open to directing the clients towards their spiritual needs, and of course she's been very open to having us pastors and whatever else St. Matthew can do to be a part of that. They have kept things very safe, even to the extent of now they have rapid testing over there, and I still believe that they're quarantining anybody who is immediately identified as positive at a hotel here in the area, and have greatly minimized the spread among the homeless community, as well as, who knows how that could spread to other people, or even to people here on our campus. So we're very thankful that they have been as diligent about that. Of note is that the 24 clients now that have been placed through the Hope Center, I should say, have been put into housing over the last year and a half, 2 years, and then been given move-in kits through the Hope Center, up to about $300 of supplies that they would need for a new apartment. They immediately have an association with the Hope Center then, as well as us as pastors. So as is mentioned there, there's about regular contact with. fact, there's a couple right now that, if we can get them with churches, and, you know, transportation is sometimes an issue, going to a completely different environment than they're used to being in, as, you know, some of the folks who've been here. Those are all challenges. Those are actually happening in out and even as far as new as people get placed, well, churches that are there for them. And then the last point that I might mention there, 22, is that the Pillars Resource Center lease coming up for renewal in May. They have already submitted into that, and we will be sitting down. They've COVID of having more room, more space. So, are we able to furnish that? Work with them on that. To look at a different place. We, as a church, have looked at other areas. Lighthouse ministry, and what is that is concerned. Those are some of the questions that I work through with them. Make sure that if and when a lease is signed, that you know, ministry in the future, as well as their being able to serve the community that they want to serve, is going to work well both ways. So if you have any questions about that, we'll probably be answering more of those as we go along. I'd say at our next congregational meeting, which is I guess in April, we'll have things pretty well hammered out by that time, and probably have that point, and maybe leading up to that, we'll have some publicity about that, and also maybe an opportunity for some forums if people are interested, and we can just try to be as communicative as possible as we go forward with that. All right. That's it.
Any questions for Pastor Pillars? All right, then Ben was going to give us kind of an overview of Lighthouse Youth Ministry.
So we have done a little bit of work on this, and generally now we're just trying to figure out exactly what this is, how it would work. Pastor Olson and I and a couple others went down to Milwaukee and visited one of their sites. And one of the things that was kind of encouraging about the facilities that we have that we might be able to use for this is we have way better facilities than the site they had. They have, you know, general information that they've given us that's kind of, this is our, some of what, because they have 3 sites down there, and this is some of what the agreements they have with those various sites, because they want the congregation to have a buy-in. They want to be partners with us and not just their place leasing some stuff from us for $1 or whatever it is. But it was kind of interesting looking at what they have. So we went down there, visited the place, took a tour, talked to the director, and kind of got an idea of what it looks like for the congregations they currently have. We've started going through the general feelings that we have for what's available in the community for similar programs. But then also we've got some people who are contacting places like Boys and Girls Club, going through school districts and stuff like that, and saying, okay, what exactly is available? How filled up? What kind of a need is there for something like this in the community? And the general feeling we get is however much space we have would probably be filled fairly quickly, although that's just a feeling at this point. We've talked to this person and they said this and whatnot. We're looking at how this would interact with Pillars. We kind of had, okay, if we're having kids and if we have people who can't be around kids at Pillars, how would that work? And Pillars talked with the police, and they didn't seem to think there'd be any problem, because technically it's even a separate address, because this would be over on the gym side, whereas Pillars' address is over there. But Pillars said they didn't see any problem with it, and the police said they didn't see any problem with it. So that was kind of a relief, because that could have made us make some harder decisions earlier on. We're also looking at, how does this interact with Hope Center facilities? We're going to have the Pastor Busk come up and look through our facilities and kind of say, okay, we need this much space. This would work for this. We'd need additional space. We don't need all this space. But in general, it seems like the stuff that we have available would be a lot more space and a lot more usable than a lot of the places that they currently have sites. So generally this program is not something that Wells supports or that something like that. It's supported by donations from the community that it's in. The people in charge, the pastor in charge of this, would be going out and talking to the people who would be giving donations. But the goal is that these places are self-sufficient with a few paid staff, a lot of volunteers. I think it was within 2 years they want it to be self-sufficient without needing any help other than the donations they get from the community. That's kind of most of what's here. If this were to work out and the congregation decides this is what we want to do, he said we're probably looking at about 2 years out before we would actually be starting, just because of all the process. So at this point, it's just looking at, this is an option, these are the facilities we have, this is something we want to do, so that we can present a little bit more extensive report to the congregation when it's time to make decisions of, do we want to do this, do we not want to do this, what does this look like here? So that's basically it for that. Is there any questions?
What kind of time frame would you think that you'd be ready to ask for, the congregation to commit? Like, would it be later this year or early next year?
I don't know. A lot of this is just figuring out, is this feasible? What does this mean for us? So like I said, we don't even have all these numbers talking to the Boys and Girls Club saying, are you full, or half your capacity? And and then also this would be an option. None of the kids would pay anything to go here, whereas Boys and Girls Club, if you had 4 kids and you're lower income, even though they do have reduced rates, I think Nikki was saying it's like $50 a day kid. But if you got 4 kids, even 3 days, that can start adding up to a lot, especially when you don't have a lot of income. And so that might be a thing where this would be a lot more active option than Boys and Girls Club, because it doesn't cost anything.
Is this looking at our building, house, center, and all our school, what we have right now?
What do you mean? The area that we're currently mainly looking at, the possibility of them using would be under the gym, and then looking at food pantry, all this kind of stuff. If more space, I'm saying, what do we want to do? How do we fit in with the rest of our ministry? We're talking about the space that Pillars is in. We're not talking about any of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, the Hope Center and the food pantry stay, and Lighthouse gets added,
I mean, is it the need the extra space that the food pantry's in when they come and say, okay, we really can't do this unless we have that space? Then what do? It's not saying this is what we want to do. It's saying, okay, what is every option we can think of? What does that mean for the church? What does that mean for these other ministries? Because it's not up to us to decide what happens. It's up to the congregation. So there might be options that some people really don't like, but we want to look at all of those before I just say, okay, this is how we're doing things. Yep. So it's kind of just the place I visited. If you just look at all the foot in the basement, my guess is, not even including the gym, of set space, you can change it a ton. Be similar space or possibly even a little bit more to what the facility we toured was. Any other questions? All right.
Mind? Any questions about anything you heard tonight? Now's the time. Okay, if then we'll close the forum and we will call the voters' meeting into order. There's just a couple of things we need to do under the voters' meeting. First of all, vote to approve the minutes from our last meeting. They were, I believe, I'm not sure what page they were on. I think the last page, actually. Page 25. Anybody got a chance to take a look at them? Any questions or anything for Ken? If not, if somebody would like to make a motion to move, a motion to second. Any other discussion? Arden? I'm sorry, second? Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next on would be to approve the financial reports as presented. I have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Any other discussion on the financial reports that presented tonight? Okay, all in favor to accept them? Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, those are accepted. And then finally, motion to adjourn. Have a motion, have a all in favor? Unanimous. All right. Pastor, if you will.
Thanks. we thank you for being such a gracious and good God to us, seen and noted in ways that were reported difficult. That you have continued to give us the food for faith, your love, your sacrifice, your living, dying, rising again, and ruling over all the evils that we face every day. What a comfort that is, and what a strength that has been. And I thank you also for making it so apparent in the ways that our congregation has continued to persevere and even in many ways to thrive. Again, we look to you as the one who created us and who sustain us and allow us to thrive in the ways that we are. Continue to bless our leaders, those who serve so ably, those who are being served, even those who at times find themselves distant from this fellowship and even from you. May our hearts and our efforts go out to them in order to keep them close, to draw them closer, and to give them your love and your sustenance through word and sacrament. We ask for your special intervention for those families who have lost loved ones over the last year or who are grieving now recent losses. You know their hearts, you know their sadness, you know how they struggle, and yet you continue to be their living God who has given them the hope and the joy of sending their loved ones heavenward to you, and then knowing that you are there for them in all the ways that the survivors need to be. Continue to bless us, continue to watch over us.